Hello everyone, welcome to Planet Holistic. I am Todd Schaefer, and today I'm going to be continuing talking about Myers-Briggs typology system, and specifically the 8 cognitive functions and what they mean for you personally. If you do not know your Myers-Briggs 4-letter code yet, I suggest going to personalityhacker.com, take their free 10-minute test, and then find out what your 4-letter code is. You can take the test for free pretty much anywhere online that you search for, but I do prefer their test. It's a really good test. You want to do tests like theirs, which are binary. I recommend avoiding tests that allow you to select your spot on a range of agree, disagree, neutral, that kind of stuff. Those tests aren't as reliable. But binary tests that give you an either or option, even if you're not entirely sure, those tests are going to be more reliable. Personality Hacker offers that for free. So let's talk about the 8 cognitive functions, okay? This is where it gets really fun. So imagine a car model. Okay, and I actually borrowed this from Personality Hacker because I think they thought of this, and it's brilliant. They've actually taken very age-old, 50-year-old process and made it even more relatable. And I really love how they do it. So let's get into it. So for the 4 cognitive functions, imagine a car model. Okay, you have a driver, you've got a co-pilot, and in the back, you have the kids. You've got a 10-year-old and you've got a 3-year-old, let's say. Now, every person has 4 primary cognitive functions. The driver, the co-pilot, the 3-year-old, and the 10-year-old. So let's talk about the driver for a second. Your driver is going to be your greatest natural talent. It's going to be your flow state. This is where you recharge your batteries, you feel most like yourself, and you will feel compelled to use this mental process. And if you can't express it often enough, you're going to become depressed and lethargic. All right? That's your driver, your main process that you use. Your second cognitive function is going to be the co-pilot. Now, this is your second strongest talent. Your co-pilot is actually your growth state. Okay, you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck developmentally if you focused on exercising this particular process. You're not necessarily going to feel compelled to use this mental process. However, when you do have it well developed, then you can enter your genius state. Okay, and I do want to thank Personality Hacker for letting me borrow their information, and I highly recommend that you check out their website because they do have tons of free information, great programs and products, and they've really done a lot of work with lots of different people, and they are experts in this stuff, so definitely check them out when you get a chance. Okay, behind the co-pilot is going to be your 10-year-old. All right, that 10-year-old always sits behind the co-pilot of this car, the passenger, right? The backseat passenger. Your 10-year-old cognitive process is the mirror opposite of that co-pilot process. It's right behind the co-pilot, and it's therefore going to be a weakness for you. All right, usually this process is going to be called upon when you feel defensive and you don't want to face something. All right, it's kind of an escape into cognitive dissonance. When you're in your 10-year-old spot, you should not make major decisions, all right? It's best if you use this in times of play, rest and relaxation, intimacy, that kind of thing. And then finally, we have your 3-year-old. So your 3-year-old is going to be the mirror opposite of your driver, okay? The 3-year-old sits right behind the driver. The 3-year-old is that mirror opposite of your greatest strength, and therefore it's going to be your biggest weakness. This is going to be the mental process that is your blind spot. It's usually going to be expressed in moments of extreme stress or overwhelm, or when you really feel like you're not yourself. All right? Use this 3-year-old function sparingly and simply and with intention. Okay, so that's the 4 cognitive function spots in the car, right? The driver, the co-pilot, the 10-year-old, and the 3-year-old. And depending on what your 4-letter type is, there's going to be different functions that sit in each of those seats and have a different type of effect on you. So let's go ahead and use an example. Let's use myself as a guinea pig. I'm an INFJ. All right, and most of you people listening are going to be NFs more than likely. So INFJ means introverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging. Okay, if you're an ENFJ, it's going to be extroverted, intuitive, feeling, judging, for example, right? Or if you're an ISTJ, you're going to be introverted, sensing, thinking, judging. So for an INFJ like me, my driver is going to be introverted intuition. And the nickname for this is going to be perspectives. So this is how I perceive the world. And while it does many things, it's a way of processing information in which I use a perspective shift to understand a problem or a situation from all possible angles. All right. Now, my co-pilot is going to be extroverted feeling, which is nicknamed harmony. So this is a process that makes decisions based on how things are impacting people on an emotional level. It turns its attention to relationships, interpersonal dynamics, and getting the needs of other people met. All right, so that's the co-pilot. So we got the driver is perspectives, the co-pilot is harmony. All right, the 10-year-old is going to be introverted thinking, which is nicknamed accuracy. So when I'm in my 10-year-old, I can become critical of other people when their opinions don't match my own, or feel assaulted by their emotions, or to avoid conflict, I may become focused on being perfect all the time, which can happen, and used to happen more in the past. I've developed considerably since then, but that has and can be an issue for me. And then last, my 3-year-old is going to be extroverted sensing, which is sensation, is the nickname, sensation. So this process uses the 5 senses to take in information and requires stimulation because it is an extroverted process. And as that 3-year-old, this function often looks like sensory indulgence, essentially. Okay, so for me, it's a really good idea if I get really stressed is to go out and do something with sensation. You know, go outside, walk around, that kind of thing. Those are things that are really good for me when I get into my 3-year-old, and stress is a really big reason. You know, stress is a really big proponent of why I need to go do that. So once you know your 4-letter type, and you know, and right off the bat, you want to know what to do to get unstressed when you're highly stressed, find out what your 3-year-old is, and let yourself engage in that, knowing that you're aiming for some stress relief. So let's talk about how to maximize these cognitive stacks here. So as an INFJ, my driver is going to be perspectives, which is my greatest strength. And my co-pilot is going to be harmony, which is my growth state. So the best thing I can do, or anybody can do, is to combine my driver and my co-pilot. Now, harmony and being introverted, going after things like harmony with other people might not be the thing I gravitate to at first, but it is going to be the thing that helps me to grow the most by marrying the harmony, the co-pilot harmony, with that driver perspective. So that means, for example, when I get into doing some teaching, whether one-on-one or one-on-many, or just talking about my perspectives, but doing so with other people, adding that harmony element, I really can start catching on fire and doing a really amazing job. So whatever your driver and co-pilot are, figure out what they are, and then look how you can marry those things together. Now, using your co-pilot, it's going to feel like you're going out of your comfort zone, but developing it is actually natural for your type, and it's going to bring out the best in your driver process, okay? But unfortunately, this is what our patterns sometimes look like, which we want to work to avoid. And I call this the cognitive loop. And that means we get into this complacent kind of sitting on our butts, going through the motions kind of routine of being in a cognitive loop with the driver and the 10-year-old. So for me, that looks like perspectives is my driver, and my 10-year-old is going to be accuracy. So I can become relentlessly hypercritical to myself and others and just stay focused on it using different perspectives on a day-to-day basis. And there's just a loop that just keeps going on and on and on. So, sensitive to criticism and whatnot. So that driver 10-year-old, once you identify what that is, you might find that this is the kind of thing that shows up for you when you get into your rut. And this cognitive loop also tends to happen when we're not getting our needs met. Okay, it's usually kind of happens. It's usually created by prolonged stress and over-reliance on our weaker functions instead of maximizing our driver and co-pilot. So when we're stuck in that cognitive loop between your driver and your 10-year-old, you might be feeling things like complacency, boredom. You might be more concerned or doubtful, self-righteous, territorial, uncooperative, defensive, closed off, secretive. And then there's also a cognitive grip, which is when you kind of oscillate between that driver and the 3-year-old. For an INFJ, it might look like overindulging with the external stuff, not just using it for stress relief to go outside and take a walk, but really getting overindulgent, unbalanced, overdoing it, overspending, kind of getting manic. So watch out for that loop between being highly stressed, which is the 3-year-old gripping with that driver. Okay. So we know that combining that driver and that co-pilot is going to be the best thing that we can do. All right. For an INFJ, it's going to be zeroing in on creating a harmony dynamic with our perspectives. And this process is really actually going to feel good. It's going to make us feel safe enough to actually reach out to others when we start practicing those things. We're going to be feeling more energized and positive when we're combining that driver and co-pilot. We're going to be more open-minded, accepting. We're going to feel more accomplished and productive, more friendly, extending ourselves, more dynamic and flexible, more assertive and proactive. If you've ever felt like that, then you're probably combining your two cognitive functions of your driver and co-pilot, whatever they may be. So, to close, let's talk about how any type can reach epic levels of growth. So your first priority is to dedicate time and attention to developing your co-pilot function, whatever it is for you. Without a strong co-pilot, you're going to be stuck in the same old place with the same old challenges. Your second priority, become aware of that 10-year-old of yours and how it hijacks your personality, steering you away from where you actually want to go. And you want to develop strategies for dealing with this to get yourself back on track. And strategies for dealing with this is typically going to look like playing, like let yourself play and relax a little bit. Okay. When I get into accuracy and perspectives and I'm just getting too much into the details and into the weeds, what I like to do is do something fun, do something kind of mindless. A couple weeks ago, I organized my DVDs, and I was throwing away a bunch of boxes for those because DVDs are kind of going away. But I organized them and it was mindless. I actually got into a flow doing that. It made me feel a lot better. And then as a result, I started to relax and get back to feeling better. So I kind of let myself do some playing or kind of a mindless project. That helped me feel better. And it also helped me recognize that I shouldn't have been trying to work harder when I was really stuck in that cognitive loop. Okay? And then the third priority, learn how to give your 3-year-old function what it needs to keep you safe and healthy and on the right track. If you ignore your 3-year-old, it's going to find unhealthy ways to get your attention, like addiction and overindulgence. When you get stressed, find out what that 3-year-old needs. For me, it's extroverted sensing, and I know to go out and take a walk or go swimming or do something physical, move my body around. That really helps me. Okay? Overindulgence would look like drinking a lot when I get too stressed, or anything else that generally you would be able to recognize is unhealthy, right? Plus, going outside and taking a walk is pretty much healthy for anybody, right? All right, so that is the end of this presentation here. And again, if you don't know your type yet, definitely take the free test at personalityhacker.com. And highly recommend listening to the podcast at personalityhacker.com. I've thrown a lot at you, but it's just to get your feet wet and urge you to engage if you want to learn more about it, because it can be extremely helpful for you. Thank you very much. And just